Kahapon po, nakita po natin ang pangbubulyaw ng ating kasama. Ang sabi po nila, tayo daw po ay balat sibuyas. Hindi po yan pagiging balat sibuyas. Ito po ay nasa rules of the Senate. At ang sabi din po ng ating dating Senate President, na ito daw po ay nangyayari talaga, nagsisigawan. Mga mahal kong kasama, kung ikaw ay nagsasabi ng iyong talumpati at ikaw ay passionate, okay lang yun. Pero para sigawan mo ang kasama mo, nasaan ang rules of the Senate? Si Ginoong Kiko Pangilinan ng ating senador ay ilang beses na pong senador. Ako po ay neophyte kung tawagin. Napakainam po sana kung pakitaan niya ako ng magandang asal at ipakita sa akin na ganito, iho, ang pagsasabi ng I'm not finished. Hindi yung I have the floor with the burning eyes and the very high voice. Ladies and gentlemen, on record po ito. Nangyari po ito on record sa Senado. Humihingi po siya ng pag-abot ng kamay sa akin, hindi na on record. Paano ko po tatanggapin ng kamay niya? Ginawa niya yan on record. Kaya sana po, hinihingi po natin bilang pakikiisa sa aking dasal, na siya ay, kung siya talaga ay nais niyang mag-abot ng kamay, on record. Sabihin niya mismo sa plenaryo na siya ay nagkamali. Katulad po ng ginawa ni Senator Lacson na tumayo kanina at nagsabing siya ay nagkamali. Hindi po ito usapin ng lalabas tayo sa media at sasabihin mong balat sibuyas ako. Di tapon na natin itong rules of the Senate. Tapon na natin to. Di pa natin pala susundin eh. Mga mahal kong kasama, ang sinasabi ko dito, tanggalin natin yan sa record dahil ayokong mababasa yan ng aking mga anak at apo na ang isang Muslim senator ay sinisigaw-sigawan dito sa plenaryo. Yun lamang po. Maraming salamat po sa binigay niyong pagkakataon.
Thank you very much, Senator Robin Padilla. We recognize once again Senator Kiko Pangilinan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, ang suggestion ko ay dahil napanood ko kagabi sa balita na nais pong magsampa ng ethics case laban sa atin na si Senator Robin Padilla. So ang suggestion ko, isampa na yung ethics case at doon na po sa ethics committee natin pag-usapan ito dahil marami pang ibang mga mas importanteng bagay sa aking paniwala ang dapat nating talakayin. Maraming salamat po. For the record, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Pangilinan. We recognize Senator Padilla once again.
Wala na po siguro mas importante kung rules of the Senate ang pinag-uusapan natin. So, ang ibig pong sabihin ba niya na hindi kayang mahumingi ng paumanhin ng isang veteran senator? Para sa kanyang pagtaas ng boses? Yun po ba?
Nakikita ko po ang matamis na ngiti ni Senator Kiko Pangilinan.
Napakahirap po bang sabihin nun? At kailangan pa natin umabot sa ethics?
May I suspend session first?
Peter Cayetano would like to deliver a privileged speech. I move that he be recognized, Madam President.
We recognize Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano for his privileged speech.
Thank you, Madam President. Dear colleagues, the book of James talks about faith, and the book of James basically tells us that faith without action is dead. So, importante po ang faith, pero importante po ay kumilos tayo ayon sa ating pananampalataya. Everyone has faith. Some people have faith in money, some people have faith in relationships, some people have faith in power. But of course, I'm talking about the faith in God, the faith in our country, and the faith in each other. So, Madam President, this leadership change is an opportunity for the Senate to take the lead in areas where the ordinary Filipino feel neglected. Without pointing fingers or no condemnation for any other leader or any other Congress in the past, let me talk about how I feel people feel at this point in time. I do believe that despite our algorithms in our social media and despite the news, most people are not talking about politics. Yes, they're talking about whether they like President Marcos, VP Sara, or all the other contenders. Whenever there are surveys in the news, pinag-uusapan sinong pambato nila sa 2028. But I would say that these are more politicians and political junkies. Most of our people are just trying to have a comfortable life, and more than that, just trying to exist. Yung personal safety lang, makapag-aral yung anak, madala sa ospital or may gamot man lang kung may sakit, how to make ends meet, paano siguraduhin na kung part-time yung trabaho, magkasya, pag hindi part-time yung trabaho, siguraduhin na hindi magsara yung kumpanya o yung maliit na negosyo. People are thinking about the future of the country, but the reality is we act as individuals and as families and as communities before we act as a nation. Madaming umaasa sa leadership change na to sa pagdating ng direksyon ng ating bansa. So we can keep talking about Senator Bato. And 100%, I will always owe him for risking his liberty. And after siya habuling kahapon, risking his safety and his life, risking his quality time with his family, risking the many, many things that he can do for being here today. No one can say where he'll be going in the next few days, the next few weeks. I really hope we all realize that the Constitution is the highest law of the land. Me, I follow the Bible, then the Constitution. So walang anumang bansa ang inuuna ang international court sa kanilang sariling konstitusyon. Kahit anong treaty po, sabi po sa Pangilinan versus Cayetano Supreme Court case na kapag kayong treaty o nilalaman nito o implementation nito, I'm paraphrasing, is unconstitutional, ang masusunod yung Constitution, hindi po yung batas. So putting that aside, putting aside, like everyone else, I am tempted to talk about politics or to talk about Senator Bato. When we talk about corruption, partly it is about politics because the mishandling of the flood control scam, and when I say mishandling, I'm talking in general, whether you talk about the ICC, whether you talk about the whole of government, whether you talk about the DPWH, whether you talk about the Blue Ribbon Committee, even myself, even my participation in any of this investigation or non-participation, nilalahat ko na. We all mishandled it for many reasons. We didn't start with the truth. We didn't start with sino ang most guilty, ano ba talaga ang ghost, ano po ang hindi, etc. But the point is, Mr. President, Madam President, napakalaki ng issue na to in terms of amount and in terms of time and saan na ilagay. To give you a perspective, 50 billion lang ang budget ng DPWH in the last year of President GMA. But I think last year, 2025, kung na-release lahat, I think 2024, lumampas ng 1 trillion sa pesos sa DPWH alone. Pero hindi totoo na lahat ng flood control ay ghost. At hindi totoo na binulsa ang buong 1 trillion pesos or binulsa ang buong 350 billion. Pero yun ang tumatak. And the problem is, any Tom, Dick, and Harry na barangay captain, konsihal, mayor, congressman, even senators, administration, opposition, pag merong kang isang contractor dun sa lugar na yon, nakasama sa listahan, ang target hindi the truth eh. Ang target, dumihan yung kalaban. So, I remember from the start of my career, yung nagsasabi sa akin, pag naglabang kayo sa putikan, lahat kayo mapuputikan. No, you cannot get in the mud to fight someone and then siguro si Bato mukha ni Mr. Clean. But for the rest of us, when we're in the mud, di ba? The reality is madudumihan tayo. And the problem there, the context that I want to say is that during a crisis, we have a global crisis, energy crisis, crisis of inflation, crisis of faith in government, crisis in international law with what the US, Iran and its allies, US and Israel are doing. The rule of law is being debated all around the world. Even Europe, the oldest allies of the US, many of the principles is being thrown out of the window every day. So there are several crises ongoing. Kung titignan lang natin from a political lens yung corruption, sabi natin political lang yan, partially true. Maraming gumamit ng flood control para tirahin lang yung kalaban. At the proper time siguro po, we'll go to that, but I don't want this to be a political speech. But look at it from a social, economic, and moral lens. From an economic lens, we did not only mishandle the investigation, but what to do when we found out of all this corruption. So government spending is so important to our GDP and productivity of our country, nag-slow down to. Until today po, hindi masyadong nagre-release ang DBM at nahihirapan pa rin ang DPWH at yung ibang ahensya na mag-bid. Maraming dahilan yan. Ito problema. Dalawa harapin natin. Tag-ulan, so malamang maraming baha na dadating. And wala naman nagbago since the flood control scam So malamang marami tayong baha. God forbid, sana hindi. But ang problema towards the end of the year, opposite naman ang problema. Meron daw po tayong super El Nino. So sobrang init at walang tubig, apektado naman ang ating agriculture. I hope all the predictions about the calamity and the state of our economy will be wrong. I hope it will be very, very much rosy. But if you look at the GDP projections, for example, since the last quarter last year, 50% off So pag sinabing 5%, 2.5%. Pag sinabing 6%, 3% lang. Ang layo. And the GDP might look like, a highfalutin economic term, and I'd rather use presyo, trabaho, kita. Masyado ba mataas ang presyo na hindi natin mabili yung dapat natin bilhin? Maliit ba masyado ang kita na hindi pa rin natin pwedeng bilhin yung gusto natin bilhin kahit mababa ang presyo? And trabaho. May trabaho ba ang tao? And not only trabaho na kumikita ang tao, but trabaho ba na may dignidad? So from an economic lens, corruption affects our everyday problems. And I think during the times that we talk about big scandals in our country, corruption scandals, suddenly, hindi lang presyo, trabaho at kita, hindi lang PTK, may isa pang K or C if English ang gagamitin natin, corruption. So right now, I feel that on the mind of every mother, of every father, of every lolo, lola, is the basics, health, education, pagkain, kuryente. Of course, sa mga highly urbanized, it's the internet, no? Food prices are steadily rising. Unfortunately, it seems that the 7% inflation rate is here to stay. Hindi mawawala yon. So just put it simply, kung kumikita ka ng 100 pesos in the year, 93 pesos lang ang halaga ng pera mo kasi 7% yung inflation. I mean, you can argue with me about the math, pero simple lang natin, di ba? If you have 1,000 pesos, 930 na lang yan. If you have 10,000 pesos, 9,300. So hindi masyado tumataas ang minimum wage at ang sahod sa ating bansa. Pero yung presyo ng bilihin, at least 7%. Yun ang problema natin sa food prices. Bakit po? Hindi naman po lahat sa inflation rate ay food prices, although most of it is food prices. So food is rising even higher than 7%. We are an archipelago where we lack fish. Hindi tayo kung tama yung news report, they will respect our having custody of Senator Bato. So, hindi na siya isusupina. But with the permission of Senator Bato, if they want to investigate the EJK, they can come here and they can interview you. Di ba? None of us are above the law. I'd like to thank Secretary Remulla for the assurance that we will follow the law. The NBI, sinabi iba dati, iba ngayon. So again, Madam President, yes, we will have to sometimes mention or go to the political aspects. No, I want to honor Senator Pia for saying yesterday, pwede ba ituloy ang hearing? So my good friend, nag-hello ako sa likod. I didn't know she'll be here. Waya, the farmers could have had their hearings, di ba? Senator Erwin, ang daming pending sa kanya. I was assuring him, pag wala naman objection sa floor, lahat ng dapat i-sponsor na. But I haven't consulted all 13 of my colleagues yet because we didn't have time a while ago. I also wanted to honor one of our colleagues who stood up during the break, Senator Win Gatchalian, and did a good job sa Protect hearing. No, I also believe that talagang itatayo naman ng executive yung uplift. But tingin ko, napabilis at napataas yung uplift dahil sa Protect. So at the proper time, Majority Leader, if there's no objection from everyone, I would ask if today we can ask him to continue as chairman of Protect. Because precisely everything I've said today, maybe except the spiritual side, but Win is also a brother in Christ. And regardless of our religion, you know, the spiritual side is always there when we love our neighbors. So, Madam President, dear colleagues, thank you for this opportunity to give me this opportunity to express what really is in my heart and mind. So may God bless the Philippines and God bless us all as we humble ourselves before the Lord and God.
Thank you very much, Senate President Alan Cayetano. We take note of everything that you said. And Majority Leader,
Yes,
when would
Madam
this be
President, as much
referred?
as I wanted to give my views as well and not to belabor the list of our colleagues who wanted to deliver their speeches. The gentleman from Palawan, I think Senator Erwin Tulfo, would like to ask some questions. I move that he be recognized, Madam President.
We recognize Senator Erwin Tulfo. Is this a manifestation or
No,
interpellation?
Madam President,
Yes.
this is not a manifestation or interpolation. Rather, It is, I would like to address this to our new Senate President while he's still on the floor. It's a parliamentary inquiry. It is regarding on the status of the motion made by Senator Kiko Pangilinan yesterday on the holdover capacity of the outgoing Senate committee chairpersons in relation to Section 19 of the rules of the Senate as raised by Senator Escudero. May we know, Mr. President, your ruling on this?
Yes. Thank you. May I ask permission from the presiding officer and the majority leader to answer?
Madam President,
before
before
that-
we entertain the
Yes.
parliamentary inquiry, may we refer, if there's no other member of this August chamber who would ask questions with regard to the privilege speech of our...
Yes, let me
before
just
we
remind the
entertain
body.
because
Yes.
it's outside the privilege speech. Unless the inquiry would be from the privilege speech of our Senate President, from the gentleman from Palawan.
Let us put it in context. The good gentleman from Palawan stated that this is not a manifestation or an interpellation. We will answer him at the proper time. In the meantime, may I hear from the majority leader the referral of the privilege speech of the Senate President, assuming nobody wishes to interpellate. But we will not forget the parliamentary inquiry of Senator Erwin Tulfo. Thank you.
Yes, Madam President, I was told that the gentleman from Valenzuela, Senator Win Gatchalian, would just like to make a short manifestation with regard to the privilege speech.
We
May I
recognize.
move that he be recognized, Madam
We
President?
recognize Senator Sherwin Gatchalian.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Majority Leader, and to our Senate President. Maraming salamat po. At na-mention po yung Protect kanina. At nagpapasalamat po ako dahil ito po ay brainchild ng ating Senate President Alan Cayetano, ang dati nating Senate President Tito Soto, and the former Majority Leader, si Senator Mig Zubiri. The timing was impeccable. Importante po yung timing. At nung bago ho tayo nag-adjourn, yun po yung kahuli-hulian nating binuo itong ad hoc committee, at kaagad ay nagkaroon ho tayo ng hearing at kaagad nagbigay ho tayo ng 49 recommendations before the Holy Week. In fact, I will give a privilege speech on those 49 recommendations, of which halos kalahati po ay na-implement po ng ating executive branch. Importante po yung timing, no? Because timing is everything. At that time, kahit napapunta ho tayo ng break, ang Senado ay umakto na mabilis para po ma-analisa, makita po yung problema, at magbigay po ng recommendation kaagad. Marami dito sa recommendation ay executive action, pero I agree with our Senate President, marami rin ho dito kakailanganin ng further study, further analysis, as well as legislative action. So, papasalamat po ako sa mabilis ng action ng ating kapulungan. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Senator Gatchalian. Let me just put on record na dahil nauna ang Protect Committee as chaired by Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, nung nakaraang susunod na araw ay doon nagtatag ng komite ang executive pagkatapos ng Senado, if my
Madam President.
dates are correct. So thank you, Senator Sherwin.
Madam
We
President.
recognize Senator Cayetano.
And the context of, I actually had a conversation with Senwin, but of course I said I'll consult the majority members. What I did, instead of attending the Protect, because I saw you very decisive there, I saw Senator Marcoleta, Senator Joel, I think Senator JV attended. Of course, Senator Win was always there. Senator Erwin was there. So what I actually did is to ask businesses by groups, pharmaceutical, manufacturers, EVs, to meet me in a small room, 4-5 at a time. Yung iba, I didn't ask them permission to ask their name, but sabi ko, Senwin, in a big business group, no? So yung pinaka dumating sa akin, humahanap sila ng clarity. But yung mga kwento nila, for example, FDA. Pero sabi nila, sir, panay FDA pinag-uusapan nyo, pero problema din namin yung HTA. Di ba? So tapos, sir, importer kami, but to get it to the rest of the country, mataas ngayon. So you might think just because we're a multinational, yung toll doesn't matter. The toll can determine kung tataas ang presyo o o hindi, 'di ba? So hindi lang so I'd really like to give them an opportunity if they want to. And Senator Win said that that's a good idea. That's why I think tama naman si Sen Win na 'di ba parang ano yan parang first aid yung timing napaka-importante. But even if na-stabilize mo na, siya naman nag-stabilize during that time, baka pwede niya nang ituloy hanggang gumaling yung pasyente, which is our nation, no, and our nation's economy. That was the context there, Madam President.
Thank you. May we hear the referral?
Yes, Madam President, before we refer, I would just like to put into the records of this August chamber my appreciation of the privileged speech of our Senate President. I would like to congratulate him for his magnanimity, especially in accepting the fact that there are good things that were started in this August chamber at hindi niya yon ipipigilin kung lalo na kung maganda yung nangyayari. I also admire his stand on impeachment and I am also with him. Ang Supreme Court nagbigay na ng definition as to forthwith and higit sa lahat yung Mark 8:36 na sinasabi ng Bible that what profits a man if he gains the whole world and lost his soul in hell forever. So it's a good reminder for all of us that walang forever dito sa lupa, Madam President. And so with that, I move that we refer the privileged speech of Senate President Cayetano and manifestations thereon to the Committee on Rules. So move, Madam President.
It's referred to the Committee on Rules. Yes, no objection. It's therefore referred to the Committee on Rules. Thank you very much, Senator Cayetano.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Madam President.
Before that, session is suspended.
declaring Waling-Waling as the National Orchid of the Philippines, sponsored by Senator Loren Legarda. So, Ginoong Pangulo, ang tanong ko po, maaari po ba, if we are bound to follow the rules, specifically Section 19, shouldn't we follow the status quo, Mr. President?
Senator Marcoleta asked if he can,
Thank you, Mr.
with the
President.
permission of Senator.
Go ahead po.
We recognize Senator Marcoleta.
Interject.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the problems being encountered by Senator Erwin. Pero masasabi ko po, Mr. President, mas maswerte siya sa akin dahil siya po ay nakitaan ko na ng napakarami pong mga bills niya na nag-transition na po sa third reading. May na-report na po yung mga committee, mga nakapag-report na po. At yung iba nga po ay naidepensa niya dito sa ating bulwagan. Ako po yung tatlong major bills ko po na inaasahan ko po sana na ma-fast track. Pagkatapos po ng 8 buwan, bago lang po na hearing, minsan lang po eh. Yung isa po, nasa pang 10 buwan na po, yung pong 12% VAT reduction sa sales ng electricity. Baka sakali pong ma-agenda na po for first hearing po. Wala po. Kami po ang dapat magreklamo sapagkat walang lumilitaw po sa mga inaakala naming mga major bills na makakatulong po sa ating mga mamamayan. Naintindihan ko po yung kanyang discomfort. Sapagkat gusto niya talaga na maisulong lahat ang mga inaakala niyang panukalong batas na makakatulong. Ganon din po ang representasyong ito, Mr. President. Pero hindi po ako nawawalan ng pag-asa kasi alam ko po yung ating legislative meal po ay unpredictable. Ang dami po. There are 1,001 factors that might come in and interfere in our deliberations and entire process of enacting a particular bill. So sana po ay magkaunawaan na lamang tayo. Hindi lamang po kayong naapektuhan. Mas lalo po ako, isip-isipin po ninyo, 10 buwan na po nakakaraan. Yung isa pong bill na para sa akin ay napaka-importante. Lalong-lalo na po ngayon sapagkat tumaas na po ang lahat. Hindi pa po, na-agenda na po last week, kaya nga nagkaroon po ng disruption ngayon. Baka sakali pong may agenda na sa lalong madaling panahon. Salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo.
Madam President, to answer directly Senator Tulfo, may I proceed?
Please proceed.
So first, for measures already on the floor, there's no reason it cannot proceed. We will have a majority caucus as soon as we adjourn. I think Senator Win will speak. I don't know if anyone else will speak. So as soon as we can start our caucus, we'll take that up. For COM reports that are not yet filed, it's more of prudence because we have to finalize the membership, the 13-9-2. From 11-13, it was a 15-9 ratio. So there's a little bit of difference. But again, this shouldn't be a problem in non-controversial bills kasi nag-uusap-usap. Having said that, my suggestions also is that we resubmit what are our priority 10 bills. And then I personally will talk to the new chairpersons. If they will not hear it with a certain period of time, can we create a subcommittee, which we usually do naman. I remember the first time I was Senator Angara. Ed was such a senior senator then, but sabi niya, Alan, create ng subcommittee, pero ako na mag-hear nito. And then he took over. And natuto ako sa ganun move kasi pati pala merienda, chairman magbabayad. Pero siya yung nag-hear. But bumilis tuloy lahat. No? The third one is maybe, I'm sure the minority leader will be in the LEDAC. Once we get a sense of the timing of the impeachment, we have to discuss either the legislative calendar and the schedule of the impeachment. Because if we can do both, remember when we talk about legislation, there's the hearings and then there's plenary. You need time for both. So assuming we agree on 3 or 4 days nung hearing, is that half day para meron pa rin legislative meal. Kasi kailangan mo din ng one day na motion day. Lahat ng korte ay merong isang araw na may motion para masubmit. Tapos merong, usually, if I'm not mistaken, it's a Friday. Para nga during the weekend, mabasa lahat ito. Di ba? And that is barring any, my wife is from Bicol, from Tiwi, Albay. So I ask you to pray harder with us na hindi mag-worsen yung sitwasyon ng Mayon, di ba? Any calamity from the super El Nino to storms, linogs, or earthquakes, or yung pagputok ng bulkan, no? Whether it's in Negros or etong sa Albay, we'll definitely need, in our situation now, we'll need our attention, whether individually or as a group or the committee. So we really have to figure out as a body. So that was the essence nga nung aking speech. So thank you for pointing out, Senator Tulfo, that in fact there are urgent necessary bills that are there. Last point, I did start going to the possible chairmans yesterday. So like Senator Bongo, who will most probably be our chairman of the Committee on Health, said that most of the bills tinitignan niya, but most of the bills walang problema, pwedeng siya, pwedeng si Senator Risa. I actually approached Senator Amy about the treaties, and she told me, go ahead. But then when I went to see her today, she said, go ahead, but malamang hindi ko kunin yung committee na yon. So mali pala yung nakonsulta ko. So I have to talk to sinong magiging chairman. And as you know, we are in need of a regular or full-time majority leader because Senator Joel Villanueva is not disposed to accept that position. If you want to join the majority, so far the majority leader is open, Senator Tulfo.
Yeah, that's a good offer, but let me think about it,
And
Mr.
that would
President.
give us an even number of 14, easier for computation.
Let me seek divine guidance, Mr. President.
No, I
Every
believe
morning
in
when
that.
I
I
wake
believe in
up,
that, yeah.
I ask and pray to the Holy Spirit to always guide me for right decisions, Mr. President.
And I praise you for that because we all should do that. No? Yeah.
Well, anyway, Madam President, Mr. President, we're amenable to that, to the creation of subcommittees. We hope that the new chairpersons, Mr. President, will honor your word. I will not stay longer, Mr. President. Therefore, we submit to the wisdom of our new Senate President. Thank you, Madam
Thank you,
President.
Senator Tulfo.
Thank you, Senator Tufo. We recognize Senator Risa Ontiveros.
Salamat, Madam President. Not to interpolate the good gentleman from Taguig, but
You're always welcome,
and
my
Pateros.
colleague in several congresses in
Yes.
different times of crisis and of generosity in our country. You can interpolate me anytime.
Salamat, Madam President, good gentleman. But it's really just to thank the good gentleman from Palawan dun po sa pagbanggit muli sa dalawa sa bills na hiningan ko ng clarification kahapon sa Senate President. Ang mga kalahating dosena ito. And thank you, Senator Erwin, sa pagbanggit muli dun sa Anti-Hospital Detention Bill at saka yung Magna Carta of Barangay Health Workers Bill. Dahil ito po, Madam President, itong dalawa ay halimbawa ng ready for amendments na on the floor. So, nagpapasalamat po ako kay Senator Erwin at dahil nag-motion sila kanina kung itatakal po yan, sinesegundahan ko po subject to the decision of the new leadership kung alin sa mga bills na ito sa iba't iba nating mga komite na hinug na for completion of a certain period, for example, in the legislative
Yes.
process,
So-
para at least maisara na po. So yun
So
lamang
just for
po,
the information of
Mr. Madam
everyone,
President.
after the speech of Senator Win, the majority will go into a caucus. You're most welcome to join us if you're going to join the majority. Afterwards, on Thursday, I will be meeting the Secretary General, the Deputy Secretary Generals, the COMSECs, the other department heads, and I did this in the House of Representatives to encourage them and empower them. So parang bibingka, yung apoy na sa ibabaw na sa ilalim. So on one hand, the chairman will make certain decisions, but we want to empower the COMSECs to push. And tamang-tama yung timing kasi when we were planning this yesterday, nagsabi nga na may LEDAC sa Tuesday. So right after the luncheon, which will talk about legislation and how to prioritize and how do you call it, work very productively in the box, but how to work out of the box. We will be also meeting with the LEDAC Secretariat at 3 o'clock. No? So yun lang po, if you can submit by today or tomorrow, what's your top 10 bills, but maybe put an asterisk or whatever. What's the 7 or 10 bills we can agree on as a body that will really help us during this time of crisis? No?
Salamat po sa
Thank
good
you.
gentleman from Taguigan Pateros, Madam President, and I will happily and proudly stay with the minority.
Thank you.
Thank you,
For now,
Senator Ontiveros.
I will accept that answer for now, Madam President.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this juncture, Mr. President, the gentleman from Davao and Isabela, Senator Rafi Tulfo, would like to deliver a privileged speech. I move that he be recognized.
We recognize Senator Rafi Tulfo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam President, my dear colleagues, today I wish to address an urgent public health issue that is silently but steadily affecting the Filipino people. Ang pagtaas ng kaso ng chronic kidney disease. Ito po ang bato na gusto ko pong ipaaresto. Ang bato sa kidney. Pero kidding aside, Madam President, an estimated 13 million Filipinos are diagnosed with various stages of chronic kidney disease or CKD. This makes up for 11.2% of the Philippine population. Ibig sabihin, sa bawat 10 tao dito sa plenaryo, may isang may CKD, unfortunately. According to the Philippine Society of Nephrology, every hour, kada oras, may isang Pilipino na nagkakaroon ng chronic renal failure. At kung dati pang senior citizen lang ang sakit na ito, ngayon, 57.44% of kidney disease patients ay nasa 20 to 59 years old. Pabata ng pabata ang mga pasyente ng CKD. Hospitals across the country are reporting new cases among children and teenagers, some as young as 4 years old, who are already grappling with the realities of kidney failure. In fact, I have come face to face with these young CKD patients. At nakita ko po ang lungkot sa kanilang mga mata dahil alam nilang habang buhay na nila ito kakaharapin. Itong si Mariano Trias ay na-diagnose nung siya ay 30 taong gulang pa lang. Si Ron Ryan Jacinto na-diagnose naman nung 16 years old pa lamang siya. At 6 na taon nang nagda-dialysis. At si RG Sibulan, 4 years old pa lang nang ma-diagnose at halos 10 taon nang nagda-dialysis dahil sa stage 5 ng CKD. I invite you to watch this short video.
Halos tumira na sa ospital ang 14 years old na si RG dahil sa kanyang matinding karamdaman, ang chronic kidney disease. Ang kanyang kalbaryo nagsimula sa murang edad na 4 na taong gulang pa lamang.
Hindi na sumasabi sa isip ko, sumuko. Gusto ko masaya lagi. Masaya lahat. Ayoko na makita si mama umiyak eh. Lagi na sa isip ko si mama pagod na. Galing trabaho, walang tulog. Tapos pupunta na kami ng ospital. Pagdating dun, wala nang pahinga.
7 taon na po ako ngayon dinadialysis eh. 30 years old po ako nung nag-umpisang dialysis eh. Wala po akong bisyo, alak, sigarilyo, wala po ako niyan. Ang naging pinaka-addict ko lang po, maghanap buhay araw-araw. Sa hanap buhay ko araw-araw, kaya lang po yung nagawa kong inumin ba pag nabiyahe ng tricycle, yung energy drink, yun po ang sumira sa akin. 2 months lang po niya sinira yung kidney ko. Bumigay na agad.
Stage 5 na ang chronic kidney disease ni Ron Ryan.
Nung in-abdomen ultrasound po ako, nakita po maliliit po yung kidneys ko. Yung isa pong kidney ko parang durog-durog. Yung isa po maliit, pang 2 years old po yung size niya. Sa nag-research na po ako sa sakit ko, Tas yun po, na ano ko na lifetime na po talaga yung dialysis ko po. Pag nakakaramdam po ko ng hirap, sakit po sa dialysis, pag kunyari nakasalang po ako at ako lang po mag-isa, minsan tatalokbong na lang po ako ng kumot pag nakasalang na po ako. Tapos mag-iisip-isip ako. Minsan lagi akong sinasabi, ba't ako pa yung nabigyan ng ganito?
Madam President, the big question now is, why is CKD becoming so prevalent, especially among young people? The steady rise of cases that can be attributed to lifestyle choices. Sa pang-araw-araw na buhay, ang karaniwang Pilipino ay nasanay na sa instant. Dahil ito ay madali, masarap at mura. Ang sinasabi ko po ay mga processed food at packaged drinks. Ang mataas na pagkonsumo ng processed foods, sugary beverages, and salty snacks combined with low physical inactivity have contributed to rising rates of obesity, hypertension, and diabetes, all major risk factors for CKD. Ayon po sa Department of Health at Philippine Renal Disease Registry, ang primary cause ng CKD sa Pilipinas ay dalawa po. Una, uncontrolled diabetes. Pangalawa, high blood sugar levels can damage your kidney filters. Over time, your kidneys can become so damaged that they no longer do a good job filtering waste and extra fluid from your blood. Ang hypertension, high blood pressure can damage blood vessels and other parts of the filtering system in the kidneys. If these parts of the kidneys filtering system are damaged, your kidneys may not work as well to remove waste and extra fluid from your body. Extra fluid in your body can raise your blood pressure even more, thus creating a dangerous cycle. The rising cases of CKD in young adults and children is a sign that there is something wrong with our healthcare system. Madam President, the Philippines ranks among the countries with the highest rates of CKD in Southeast Asia, while countries like Singapore and Thailand have also seen increases. The rise in the Philippines is particularly steep. This can be attributed to a combination of limited access to preventive health care, greater exposure to risk factors, and lower awareness among the general public. The primary problem is in the lack of programs for early detection of CKD. Madam President, CKD often shows no symptoms in its early stages. That is why early detection is crucial, because when identified early, CKD can often be managed with medication and lifestyle changes. Simple routine tests, sana, such as checking blood pressure, blood sugar, and urine for protein, can catch kidney disease before it progresses. Unfortunately, dito sa Pilipinas, 1 out of 3 CKD patients are already in stages 3 to 5. At sa stage na ito, the cost of managing the disease is 11 times more than managing it in its early stage. From 44,000 pesos to mataas hanggang 116,000 pesos for non-diabetic patients, and from 46,000 pesos to 120,000 pesos for diabetic patients. That is why we must focus on education, regular screening in schools and communities, and promoting healthy habits from a young age. With this, I propose that we explore measures that could address this health concern. Let us provide our people with programs for early detection, essential diagnostics procedures such as the urine albumin to creatinine ration test remain inaccessible to many patients because they are not covered by PhilHealth, and they cost around 1,500 pesos to 3,500 pesos per test. I filed Senate Bill number 2123, ang Accessible Kidney Care Act, which will provide free kidney health screening in barangay health centers and super health centers to make screening more accessible to the public. Other preventive measures that we could put in place is the improvement in the daily nutrition habit of our people. I filed Senate Bill 1668, or the Health Rating Label Act. The measure will provide a system that measures the overall nutrition profile of packaged food and beverage products from 1 as the least nutritious to 5 as the most nutritious. The rating system is calculated based on a product's calorie, saturated fat, sodium, sugar, and fiber content. Several countries have implemented these measures, and major food and beverage manufacturers have complied. The manufacturers either put the warning label or simply reduce the sugar or sodium content to avoid having the products marked as unhealthy, and as a result, turn off their consumers. Mr. President, the impact of CKD on a young person's life is profound. Physically, CKD leads to fatigue, weakness in advanced stages, the need for regular dialysis, a process that replaces kidney functions but requires several hours, multiple times a week. This can interrupt schooling, work, and social life. Panghabang buhay po ang sakit na CKD, which is why, beyond the physical toll, CKD also brings emotional and social challenges. Families are affected too, facing high medical costs and the emotional weight of supporting a loved one through this chronic disease. As advocates for our people's health, Madam President, let us remember that the fight against CKD is not just the responsibility of doctors and hospitals, it is a challenge for all of us. But the good news is, madami pong solusyon or prevention na mas mura kesa sa pagpapagamot ng CKD. I hope for the support of my dear colleagues, and I know whoever will chair the Committee on Health, may kita nilang halagaan ng mga panukalang ito. Maraming salamat po, Madam President, my dear colleagues. Good evening.
Thank you, Senator Raffy Tulfo, Majority Leader. Or do you intend to refer the privileged speech of Senator
Thank you,
Tulfo?
Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we refer the privileged speech of Senator Raffy Tulfo to the Committee on Health and Demography. So move, Madam President.
Okay. So referred.
Madam President, the gentleman from Valenzuela, Senator Win Gatchalian, would like to deliver a privileged speech. I move that he be recognized.
We recognize Senator Sherwin Gatchalian.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Majority Leader. And thank you for giving this representation the opportunity to give this privileged speech. This was supposed to be given last week, but due to some circumstances, this privileged speech has been delayed. So maraming salamat po for the opportunity. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I stand before you today on an issue that should concern every Filipino community, not only because it affects the cleanliness of our surroundings, but also because it directly impacts public health and safety. And allow me to play the video, Mr. President. Madam President. When we ask the technical people to increase the volume. Pakitaas po yung volume.
May we see the video, please?
May we request to turn up the volume?
We suspend session for 1 minute.
Thank you, Majority Leader. And there. Allow me to play the video, Madam President.
Please proceed.
Nilaman ng malaking apoy ang isang saradong landfill.
Ang nasa 40 hektare na tambakan na ito ng basura sa Navotas City.
Mahirapan pa rin ang pag-apula rito.
Mabaho, maalikabok at talagang nakususulasok yung amoy. Nagkakasakit na ilang taga-Ubando sa Bulacan.
Dahil sa usok, nag-trigger po yung aking hika.
Ubo, sipon, sakit ng ulo at hirap sa paghinga.
On April 10, a massive fire broke out at the Navotas sanitary landfill. In the days that followed, thick, hazardous smoke billowed from the mountain of waste and spread across several parts of Metro Manila. Navotas City, Valenzuela City, Caloocan City, Malabon City, Pasig City, Mandaluyong City, Quezon City, and San Juan City were all shrouded in thick smog. The smoke even stretched as far as Obando, Bulacan. At hindi ito simpleng usok, Madam President. Inuulat ng mga naapektuhang residente na nakaranas sila ng matagal na sakit ng ulo, kahirapan sa paghinga at iba pang sintomas na dala ng maruming hangin. Ang tawag ng Department of Health sa panganib na hangin na ito ay haze. Maruming hangin na naglalaman ng particulate matter na maaring makapasok sa bloodstream o daloy ng ating dugo at magpapalala sa mga sakit o existing conditions. Media reports say that nearly 500 people who live near the landfill were evacuated from their homes to the municipality of Obando, Bulacan. And even then, the haze still reached them. Most tragic of all, 54-year-old Arlene Abbott died due to reported health complications after being evacuated due to the harmful smoke from the landfill. And although the fire has finally been extinguished, the fact that it took 1 month only underscores the gravity of the incident. Madam President, this is not only landfill-related tragedy to strike our country in recent memory. Just this January, a garbage landslide struck the Balinaw sanitary landfill in Cebu City. Search and rescue operations ended after 10 days. By then, 36 people had died and 18 others suffered injuries. Madam President, what happened in Navotas and Cebu are not just isolated incidents. They were man-made disasters created by the way we manage, contain, and dispose waste. Most of all, there were warnings that I first sounded 6 years ago. In 2020, I raised an alarm over the country's worsening waste management system. At the time, I warned this chamber that our growing volume of garbage was starting to exceed the absorption capacity of our disposal systems. 6 years to the day, I sound this warning again, because now the consequences of inaction have turned deadly. Innocent lives have been lost. Hundreds have been driven from their homes. And once again, ordinary Filipinos pay the price for our failure to act before the crisis worsened. Let me paint a picture of the situation on the ground. The average amount of waste our country generates each day has been rising steadily, and the figures are alarming. From 51,400 tons per day in 2015 to 61,700 tons per day in 2024. This is a 20% increase in daily waste generation in less than a decade. And now, according to the 2025 data from the National Solid Waste Management Commission, our country generates 22.18 million metric tons of waste annually, more than 48,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools every year. At the current annual growth rate of 2%, the country is projected to produce more than 27 million metric tons of waste per year by 2035. Our daily waste production will increase to more than 74,000 tons per day. These numbers are equivalent to more than 59,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools per year. The law does not leave us without any response. Republic Act 9003, or the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000, lays down a clear policy framework for solid waste management. It emphasizes the role of local government units to implement proper segregation, recycling, and composting practices, all the way to final disposal. And as I warned way back in 2020, implementation of RA 9003 continues to be weak and found wanting. According to the Commission on Audit's 2023 Performance Audit Report on the implementation of the Solid Waste Management Program, enforcement and compliance have been poor. This is truly unfortunate that the problems we raised 6 years ago have remained largely unaddressed. The first gap is the shortage of materials recovery facilities, or MRF. The COA report also found that of the 42,064 barangays that are supposed to have access to MRFs, only 40% have been served. This means that 6 out of 10 barangays in the country lack MRF access. Section 32 of the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act mandates that every barangay or cluster of barangays will be served by an MRF. This shortcoming is crippling. MRFs are essential to successful solid waste management. The sort, process, and store recyclable materials and bridge the gap between waste collection and final disposal. If the process is compromised early on, the effects ripple across the entire chain. Gap number 2 is the lack of properly maintained and operational sanitary landfills. These are supposed to serve as the end point for residual waste. Information from the COA report shows that as of 2022, only 34.6% of LGUs in the country are being served by a sanitary landfill. Because of this lack of coverage, illegal dump sites continue to be a problem. As of 2024, there are 79 illegal dump sites nationwide. And because these dump sites are illegal, it is very likely the figures are underreported. Now, after all this data, the next question is, what does this all mean? These gaps show us a clear picture. 26 years after the passage of 9003, our country's waste management system is still struggling. The lack of MRFs stalls the proper diversion and processing of recyclable materials, and poor sanitary landfill coverage increase the risk of improper and unsafe disposal system. This makes every improperly managed landfill a breeding ground for disease, a potential fire hazard, and a mountain of environmental pollution. In a 2025 study from the World Health Organization says that uncollected waste management creates favorable conditions for vector-borne and zoonotic diseases. Zoonotic diseases are diseases that can be spread between animals and humans. Now, some might say the solution is simply cracking down on implementation. I argue, Madam President, that even if implementation of 9003 improves, the country still has to grapple with huge amount of residual waste that must be treated or properly disposed of. The country's answer to this problem can't be collection and burial alone. We must expand our toolkit of responses, and one proven modern tool is the waste-to-energy technology. Let me be clear. Waste-to-energy is not a replacement for 9003. The intention is to enhance it. The first line of defense is still reducing waste at the source. We should still address the gaps in landfills and the lack of MRF coverage. But even after all these things are applied, we still have to deal with a large number of residual waste. This waste cannot simply be left to pile up in landfills that are clearly overburdened. Waste-to-energy gives us another option, not just to dispose of this waste safely, but also to convert it into productive resource. In addition to safer treatment, waste-to-energy also allows us to turn material that would otherwise sit in landfills into energy. The Department of Energy estimates that the municipal solid waste generated by Metro Manila and our highly urbanized cities, an estimated of 6 million metric tons of municipal solid waste can generate 335 megawatts of installed capacity. Like the urgent warning I sounded about the need to address our garbage crisis, I've spoken about waste to energy before. This representation was the first to file a dedicated Waste to Energy Act, and I have continued to champion this passage across 3 Congresses. When I was the head of the Committee on Energy 6 years ago, I sponsored Senate Bill number 1789 in the 18th Congress. In the 19th Congress, I co-sponsored Senate Bill 2267. Today, I stand the 3rd time and present Senate Bill 365, or the Waste to Energy Act, as an expansion of our options for dealing with our waste management crisis. This measure seeks to establish a clear national policy and regulatory framework for the adoption and responsible use of waste-to-energy facilities in the Philippines. This integrates waste-to-energy into our existing laws, in particular, those on national solid waste management planning. It does not leave health and environmental concerns behind. Senate Bill 365 mandates that the waste-to-energy facilities operate following strict emissions, environmental, and public health guidelines. Section 5 of the measure says that a waste-to-energy facility must comply with relevant laws, rules, and regulations such as the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act of 2004. It also takes the additional step of empowering the Department of Health and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. They will not only ensure that health and environmental standards are observed, but they will also be instrumental in monitoring the impact of waste-to-energy facilities in our communities by providing reports and research so that the adoption of waste-to-energy is not a loose response, but a careful, monitored component of our larger waste management strategy. I would like to reiterate that waste-to-energy is not some unproven experiment. Advanced economies around the world, such as Singapore and Germany, have successfully integrated this approach into their own solid waste management systems under strict environmental and emission regulations. As of 2023, 47 countries generate electricity from municipal waste and industrial waste. Singapore uses 4 waste-to-energy plants, one of which is located less than 23 kilometers away from Orchard Road. In Berlin, the Ruhleben waste-to-energy facility operates just a short distance from the city center, with emissions remaining well below limits recognized under our own Clean Air Act standards. Let me illustrate. The threshold for dioxins and furans under the Clean Air Act is 0.1 nanogram per normal cubic meter of emitted gas. Actual emissions levels from waste-to-energy plants in Germany, South Korea, and Japan all recorded below this threshold. The emissions from the Ruhleben waste-to-energy facilities are at 0.157 nanogram per cubic meter. South Korea is even lower at 0.02 nanogram per cubic meter, while the emissions of dioxins and furans from Japan's waste-to-energy facility are extremely low. The statistics for dust tell the same story. Allowable limit for dust particulate matter is 10 milligrams per normal cubic meter of emitted gas. The performance of Germany's waste-to-energy plant is at 0.03 milligram per cubic meter. South Korea's WTE plant is at 1.49 milligram per cubic meter, and Japan's WTE plant produces less than 1 milligram per cubic meter. This shows that when waste-to-energy plants are developed and regulated correctly, they can function safely even in highly urbanized communities. Madam President, the Philippines should not be afraid of adopting a modern response simply because we have been accustomed to relying on landfills, open dump sites, and adopting an attitude of out of sight, out of mind. Each day we delay 60,700 tons of garbage strains our waste management system. And with each delay, we move closer to another landfill fire, another forced evacuation, and another Filipino life put at risk. This is unacceptable. Huwag nating hintayin maulit pa ang nangyari sa Navotas at Cebu bago tayo matauhan. Hindi na natin pwedeng ipagpaliban ang isang hakbang na matagal na nating dapat na simulan. Huwag nating hintayin na may mamatay pa muli dahil ang pagpadaig sa pagkawalang bahala at kapabayaan, yan ang tunay na basura. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, dear colleagues.
Thank you very much, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. That has been a subject matter pending for many years, if not decades. And laws you mentioned, Clean Air Act and RA 9003, were laws I principally authored in my first term. But I believe that there are many of our colleagues who wish to interpolate on this matter, including Senator Pia Cayetano and Senator Risa Ontiveros, who I saw was raising her hand. We will give them a chance to study.
Madam President, I think
Yes.
Senator Risa is raising her hand for a quick manifestation. I move that we can
Thank you.
recognize
We
her.
recognize Senator Ontiveros for her manifestation.
Salamat po, Madam President. Maiklingang manifestation lamang na nakikiisa ako sa sponsor sa usapin ng pagpipigil na may mangyari pang muling waste or open dump site na mga sunog na nakakapatay, nakakasakit sa ating mga kababayan at nakakapatindi ng air pollution sa ating mga syudad at iba pang lugar. Kaisa ako sa good sponsor sa usapin ng buo at maayos na implementasyon ng Solid Waste Management Act. Pero at siguro hindi ito surprise sa good sponsor, hindi pa rin po ako kumbinsido sa waste to energy bilang isang alternatibo sa dulo ng ganyang buong prosesong iyon at aktibo muli akong lalahok sa pagdinig sa komite at sa debate dito sa plenaryo. Gagawin ko po yun, Madam President, good sponsor, kaugnay nung mga hanggang ngayon ongoing na mga mayamang diskusyon ko at ng aking Legis team sa Eco Waste Coalition at sa mga 100 higit na mga European Union organizations na nananawagan para sa moratorium sa waste to energy at nananawagan din para sa planned phase out ng mga waste to energy facility. So, ipapasok ko po sa pagdinig at saka sa debate dito sa plenaryo yung mga alternatibong sinusulong nitong mga ecological partners ng Senado dito sa usapin ng waste to energy. So, salamat po, maraming salamat, Madam President at good sponsor.
Thank you, Senator Risa. Madam President, I move that we suspend consideration of the privileged speech of Senator Win Gatchalian since some of our colleagues have reserved the right to interpolate on Monday.
Yes.
I so move,
No
Madam
objection?
President.
Hearing none. The speech, consideration of the speech is hereby suspended pending the interpellation by Monday next week.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
On some administrative matters, the minority leader, the former Senate President, is raising his hand. I move that we recognize the minority leader.
We recognize former Senate President,
Thank you,
Minority Leader.
Madam Presiding Officer, Mr. President. May I know from it's a parliamentary inquiry, may I know from the Secretariat if we are in receipt already of the articles of impeachment from the House of Representatives? I have it from a reliable source from the House that they have sent it. So I don't know if you have received it already.
Yes, I am told by the Secretary General that none has been received thus far.
You have not received it yet. It's 5:47.
None received. As of 5:48,
As of 5:48, you
PM.
have not received it. All right. Thank you.
and it is,
We'll await.
and may I say this as well, to put on record, it is a belief of this representation that there must be a fair and independent court and that action must be taken forthwith.
Correct, Madam President, because I distinctly remember the last time it was submitted here, it received at 4:15 p.m., but you adjourned at 7 without the the body knowing about it. So I
may
just
I
want to make
seek-
sure
Yes.
that before we adjourn, we are in receipt. If we do have received it, and if really the House of Representatives has already sent it, the message was for around 4:25 this afternoon.
I repeat, the message I'm receiving from the Secretary General is that
Not
it has
yet.
not been received. And
Thank you.
just a minor correction from the former Senate President when you say you adjourned, because in generations to come, they will not say or read who is you. I was not the presiding officer, Mr. Minority Leader, at the time. So in reference to me, when you say it is you, just to put on record, it was not this presiding officer, Senator Legarda, who was the Senate President or the presiding officer at that time, just for correction, because it will just be a black and white indication on the archives of the Senate. Thank you.
Thank you. At this juncture, Madam President, just some administrative matters. Madam President, I move that we proceed to the Senate President's designation of Senate conferees to the Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions on Senate Bill number 1894 and House Bill number 8476, the bills amending the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act. So move, Madam President.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the following members are hereby designated as Senate conferees to the Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions on Senate Bill 1894, House Bill 8476. This is my bill, therefore I'm the chairperson. The members are Senator Joel Villanueva, Senator Pia Cayetano, Senator Mark Villar, and on the part of the minority, Senator Bam Aquino. So designated.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, may I seek for a minute suspension?
Senate suspended.
There's a reference of business, so we might as well do the reference of business. And if by the time we finish, then you are ready to adjourn and we have not received it yet, then it's no longer our fault.
Yes, Mr. President. Yes. Mr. Former Senate President, yes. Majority Leader,
Madam President, may we proceed with the reference of business?
please proceed.
Reference of business. Message to the President of the Philippines. Letter of His Excellency President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., dated 29 April 2026, proposing increasing the minimum access volume by 150,000 metric tons annually for a period of 2 years, commencing in MAV year 2026, such that the MAV for pork for MAV year 2026 shall be set at 204,210 metric tons from current level of 54,210 metric tons, pursuant to Public Act number 8178. The proposed adjustment seeks to address persistent domestic supply constraints arising from the prolonged impact of the African swine fever.
Referred to the Committee on Agriculture, Food, and Agrarian Reform.
Messages from the House of Representatives. Letter from the House of Representatives informing that the Senate on 6 May 2026 designated Representatives Romulo, Asidre, Gatchalian, Escudero, and Jokno as conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the Operations House Bill number 4744 titled An Act Establishing the Private Basic Education Voucher Program, providing for the creation of the Bureau of Private Education, reporting function for repealing for the purpose sections 2, 3, 4, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, 14, and 15 of Public number 8545, otherwise known as the Expanded the Government Assistance to Students and Teachers in Private Education Act, which amended Public number 6728, otherwise known as the Government Assistance to Students and Teachers in Private Education Act, and Senate Bill number 1981 titled An Act Establishing the Private Basic Education Voucher Program in appropriating funds for repealing for the purpose Republic Act number 6728 or the government decisions to students and teachers in private education as amended.
Referred to the Committee on Rules.
Later, from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that 6 May 2026, it ratified the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 5939 titled An Act Allowing the Department of Education the flexibility to determine the pedagogical approaches to be implemented in the basic education curriculum, amending for the purpose Section 5 of Republic number 10533 or the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013, and Senate Bill number 1899 titled An Act Allowing the Department of Education the flexibility to determine the pedagogical approaches to be implemented in the basic education curriculum, amending for the purpose Section 5 of Republic number 10533 or the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013.
To the archives.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 6 May 2026, it ratified the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provision of House Bill number 4745 titled An Act Institutionalizing the Public Basic Education Schools in Geographically Isolated, in Disadvantaged and Conflict-Affected Areas, providing access roads leading to last-mile schools, and putting funds therefore, and Senate Bill number 1937 titled An Act Institutionalizing Support for Public Basic Education Schools in Geographically Isolated and Disadvantaged Areas, and appropriating funds therefore.
To the archives.
Bills on first reading. Senate Bill number 2122, An Act remaining the Tawi-Tawi Regional Agricultural College as a Tawi-Tawi State College, strengthening its governing board, and appropriating funds therefore by Senator Legarda.
Referred to the Committee on Higher Education, Technical and Vocational Education, and Finance.
2123, An Act mandating the establishment of dialysis centers, expanding access to kidney disease detection and dialysis treatment services, and appropriating funds therefore by Senator Tulfo-R.
Referred to the Committees on Health and Demography, Social Justice, Welfare, and Rural Development, and Finance.
2124, An Act excluding system loss from value-added taxes in the sale of electricity to residential household consumers by Senator Pangilinan.
Referred to the Committees on Ways and Means and Energy.
2125, An Act strengthening the Philippine Normal University, declaring it as a national university for teacher education, and appropriating funds therefore by Senator Gatchalian.
Referred to the Committees on Higher Technical and Vocational Education, Ways and Means, and Finance.
Resolution number 385, resolution honoring the life and legacy of Martin Alondris Tuason, for his invaluable contributions, steadfast commitment, and unwavering dedication to strengthening the Philippine defense industry by Senator Subiri.
Referred to the Committee on Rules.
Communication. Letter from Acting Executive Secretary Ralph G. Recto dated 13 April 2026, transmitting to the Senate a certified true copy of the Petroleum Service Contract number 91 between the Republic of the Philippines and the Consortium NPG, Party Limited, Pilodril Corporation, Rental Petroleum and Minerals Corporation, Forum Energy Philippines Corporation, and Alcorn Petroleum and Minerals Corporation pursuant to Section 2, Article 12 of the Constitution.
Referred to the Committee on Energy.
Committee reports. Committee report number 61, submitted by the Committee on Justice and Human Rights on House Bill number 6639, introduced by Representative D. FC et al., titled An Act Granting Philippine Citizenship to Benny Francois Boatwright III. Requesting approval without amendment taken into consideration. Senate Bill number 1595 by Senator Pangilinan.
Calendar for Ordinary Business.
Committee report number 62, submitted by the Committee on Justice and Human Rights on House Bill number 6644, introduced by Representative D. et al., titled An Act Granting Philippine Citizenship to Matthew James Ramos, recommending its approval without amendment taken into consideration. Senate Bill number 1613 by Senator Pangilinan.
To the calendar, ordinary business.
Madam President, at this point, I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Monday, May 18, 2006.
Session is adjourned at 5:58 p.m. and we resume on Monday,
At 3 o'clock.
3 p.m., May 18, 2026.